And I realized that being vulnerable really opens the door and lets somebody in. You know what I mean? It lets somebody know you really right off the bat. And I found in my faith, that's my superpower. A lot of my life, I was told that vulnerability is dangerous.
Most conversations that I have, people think of fruit as some kind of monetary. I've looked at the fruit in my life as a relationship, our Bible study.
Yes.
The men that get impacted from that and that impact other men or women, whatever, kids, I think that's the fruit. Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Jonathan Oakes with Bailey Building Construction. I would just like to welcome you to Faith and Foundations, the podcast where we sit and talk to local leaders in our community in the Ocala, Marion County area, just to have a conversation about their faith and what they're doing in our community and how God has worked in their lives to do the things they've done. We plan on having a lot of great influential guests, and today we've got a really dear friend of mine, Nick Melillo. He's from New York and just recently moved to the area, and he's a man of faith, and I'm super happy to have him on, and I will let him tell who he is and more about himself. So Nick, glad to have you, buddy.
Hey, good to be here. I'm tempted to tell you that my last name is pronounced Melillo, but I'm just not gonna.
My bad.
I'm just gonna leave it alone. No, I'm just kidding. Now that I've officially brought it up and broken it. But
Melillo.
Melillo. Yeah, it's a lot of people go Melillo, Melito. I'm like, there's no T. You're just making stuff up now at this point. What's up, man?
Hey, buddy. What I said, Melillo.
Listen, they've done worse. People have done way worse.
Yeah, I guess I changed the I for an E then. Is that what I did?
Or just made it a long I. I don't know. I don't know.
So tell us a little bit about yourself, man. I know that you're from New York. And you just recently moved here. I know you're a man of faith. Just tell the audience and people who you are and what's
sure.
up.
Yeah. Well, I'm originally from New York. My wife and I lived in New York our whole lives. I'm now 37, and we moved here end of 2024, basically just to get away from New York because we were excited about living in a state focused on liberty. Let's just put it that way. And yeah, when I got here, I had basically spent the last 15 years before that in entrepreneurship and sales and in operations, and just was looking for an opportunity to start my own company. And I had an awesome opportunity actually through a friend of ours and a previous guest on your show, Jeremiah. He actually opened the door basically to say, hey, I want to bring you on as a business consultant. And that was before I had a business. I was thinking about starting a business and going into consulting.
I did not know that.
Yeah, that's actually how that kicked off.
Huh.
Yeah, I had wanted to go into business consulting, and I knew that I would bring value to companies. And I had already, before the age of 30, I had already helped multiple companies to grow to over $1 million in revenue. And it was just kind of sitting on the tip of my tongue, you know what I mean? Where you're just sitting, you're looking at it, you're going, I know this is direction that I want to go. I'm just waiting for God to open a door. And then wouldn't you know it, he opened a door and it just jumped right into it. He said to me, we want to bring you on as a business consultant. And I was like, I don't even have a business yet, man. I don't know how to charge you. I don't know how to do any of that yet at this point. He said, don't worry about it. We'll figure all that stuff out later. And then basically New Light Consultants was incorporated. That's my company. I like the idea of helping small business owners to grow, scale, and close more sales. And one of the main things I focus on a lot is sales training, and I find that most people hate sales because they feel like in order to be good at it, you got to compromise on your morals. And that's not true. There's a lot of different things that we can do to grow, to be a blessing to our communities, to be a blessing to our people, and to sell and do the things we need to do in order to grow a company without compromise, and without having to bend on and flex on our moral compass, So yeah, that's kind of a, I guess, interesting way of answering your question, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, question about who you are, looking at you and interacting with you on a, weekly, not daily, but almost daily. I mean, Yeah, we work together, and that's the way our relationship. I mean, I guess our relationship really started whenever I met you at our Bible study.
Yeah.
And I mean, I told you since day one, and you've said this about yourself multiple times. That I guess a lot of people say this about you, but I just have felt like I've known you for my entire life. I've just always have felt so comfortable around you. Like even doing this today, like I just feel like we're just having a conversation.
Yeah.
It's just me and you just talking and letting everybody else see it.
Yeah, just kind of hanging out. That's all.
Yeah. I don't know, man. You're very inspirational. You have a way with words that I struggle with. You have a way of understanding me and articulating what I'm trying to say to other people, especially with our employees, my wife. What you've done just for me and my wife's relationship, is amazing. You've, me and her used to go at blows with stuff that I would say things, and I say them to you, and you just get in the middle of them with me and her in the office, or even on a personal level. And I don't know, man. It's just a breath of fresh air. Honestly, that's the best way I can say it.
Well, don't make me cry. Please I appreciate. Do. Yeah, please do. It's good. Just let it happen. No, I appreciate you saying that. And honestly, it's funny. I said this to Andres. I had spoken to him on his podcast, and he said something very similar to me. And I realized that being vulnerable really opens the door and lets somebody in. You know what I mean? It lets somebody know you really right off the bat. And I found in my faith that that's my superpower. You know what I mean? A lot of my life, I was told that vulnerability is dangerous, that you don't overshare. You can't go too deep down the rabbit hole too fast. You don't know who you can trust. I'm from New York. This is a lot of the mentality that that I would usually carry and see there. Yeah. And I always just lived in this abrupt vulnerability, this place of, I guess you could sometimes call it annoying vulnerability, like the kind of person who was always taking conversations to a deep level. Drove my folks insane, you know what I mean? But I loved it. And there was something about it that just went, I don't want to run from that. I like that. I like being the person who can go, hey, I see you and you're okay and you're safe to let me see you. You know what I mean? I feel like that was it was one of the things that inspired me to say, you should go into business coaching. You should be a business consultant, is because so many of us are living in this place where we are buried under problems and issues, and we think it's just my business, or it's my finances, or it's my ability to manage my guys, or any of that kind of stuff. But really the answer is that we're struggling internally. We have a spiritual battle that's going on inside of us, and if we keep ignoring that, it's kind of like the equivalent of painting the fruit onto the tree. You know what I mean? Like, you could paint the fruit on the tree. You could spray paint red on top of a tree to try and make it look like apples. But that's not edible. That's not really good fruit. You know what I mean? Jesus said you'll know them by their fruit. And the question becomes, well, how do we actually get fruit? How do we actually bear fruit? You have to pay attention to the root. You have to pay attention to what's really going on deep down. What are you really feeling? What have you really been through? Have you ever dealt with that? And that's been a long journey for me. But, depends on how deep down this rabbit hole you want to go.
Yeah, I mean, we can get off topic for a minute.
Yeah.
I mean, it's still on topic, but, it's like, what do you measure the fruit by? Like, everybody measures fruit. I'd say everybody, I shouldn't say that. I would say for the most conversations that I have, people think of fruit as some kind of monetary, it's not the, like I've looked at the fruit in my life as a relationship. Our Bible study.
Yes.
The men that get impacted from that and that impact other men or women, whatever, kids, that, I think that's the fruit.
Yeah. I think it's the fruit of the Spirit. I think it's love, joy, peace, kindness, goodness, patience, gentleness, and self-control. I think I got all of them. But anyway, we'll go back and double check that later. Yeah. But I think that's the real fruit. When you get around a person, there's just joy. You know what I mean? That was one of the things that connected me to you was I knew that there were struggles and there was stuff you were going through, and you were very open and vulnerable about that. Probably a big part of the reason we connected, because we were just two vulnerable souls just willing to be like, hey, these are my scars. Cool, these are my scars. What's up?
Yeah.
But you had joy. You know what I mean? Deep down, there was still joy. You were fighting through it, and there was a lot that you were working through. And it's a big part of the reason that when I speak about you guys, I tell people about, it's not just an integrity thing, because it is integrity. But you can tell so much more about a person by how they react in really hard times than by what their face looks like when things are going well.
Right.
Anybody can be, really positive when their bank account is full. Anybody can be really positive when they're getting a hug and a kiss from their wife.
Yeah.
It's really, really hard in the middle of a fight, in the middle of a battle that you're working your way through, in the middle of financial struggles while your kids are saying, I don't want to talk to you. You know what I mean? In the middle of all those things on top of one another, to be able to show up at 6 o'clock in the morning, which, by the way, still mad at you for making the Bible study at 6 a.m. on Thursday mornings. Because I'm pretty sure that's before the Holy Spirit wakes up. But I'm kidding. That was a joke. That was a joke. Thank you. I'm not blaspheming.
He's always
exactly. But just to watch that there is genuine joy behind everything that you do. There's still that part of you that's really fighting to let that joy shine through. And that is one of the things that I respect about you most.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, man.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's like today, man. I got customers that owe me money, and I got to pay stuff, and cards are getting declined, and it's like, got to figure it out. I got to keep going.
Do what you got to do.
Still got to do what you got to do. It's tough, being a leader and still being a Christian. I think is honestly one of the hardest things I've ever had to do. And not that I have to do it. We have choices. We can definitely choose the fleshly, earthly things. But, to follow Christ and be close to Christ in all of those seasons, it is not easy. Mm-hmm. It is very, very hard. But, I don't know. I definitely think that being intentional, being vulnerable, doing all those things that you have said is, the key. Picking up your cross every day and getting after it. It doesn't mean that your life is going to be, all hunky-dory and that everything's going to be good. But
heck no.
It's going to be okay. It'll be all right. You'll get through it. Just, go
one day
at a time.
We have hope. You know what I mean? It's like, it's not a matter of, everything's going to be fine necessarily in this life. Maybe it will. We pray that it does, and we pray that God blesses the things we put our hands to and all that kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, man, the hope is so much more than anything earthly.
Oh yeah, that's what
you know
I
what
mean.
I mean. That's what I'm saying, and I know that's what you're getting at. It's like the idea of, man, if we can have that hope and we understand that we're saved and that He's our God and that He loves us. All right, give me what you will. You know what I mean? Do your worst.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, the only thing that's going to happen, consider it pure joy, brothers and sisters, when you face trials of many kinds. For we know that trials produce perseverance. Let perseverance finish its work so that you may be mature and complete, lacking nothing. You know what I mean? It's like that's so counterintuitive to today's world. And that is one of my favorite Bible verses, because I'm sitting there and I'm going, consider it joy when you go through trials. Like, no, that sucks. Like, I don't want that at all. Yeah. You know what I mean? But at the same time, it's like, that's kind of the point. The only way that we ever grow is through resistance. You know what I mean? If you ever worked out, you know what that feels like. You can only grow through resistance. Same thing happens with your soul.
Yeah, I look at just the stuff that I've gone through since I've met you.
Yeah.
And I mean, it still is really hard, but and whenever we get through all of these things, we will be so much better off as individuals and as a company than we would ever. And I don't think I ever would have.
Yeah.
I really don't think that I ever would have changed. I think I would have just stayed doing the same thing because it was comfortable.
Yeah.
Even if it wasn't right, it still was comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
And it took some, dragging through the mud to get it right. So what you're saying actually leads into my next question that I wanted to ask you, which obviously, we know that your, values are, being a Christian and, you're a man of faith. But what are some core values that guide you as a leader on your day-to-day basis?
That is a fun one. I find it's a funny one to say, but I find that the word humanity and dignity really stick with me. And the reason that I feel that, one of my best friends said to me when he watched another podcast that I had done where I told my whole story and I really shared with him I shared my philosophy on sales and thoughts, about those kind of things. And he's one of my best friends that I used to work with. So he has seen me in every kind of sales conversation. We've closed a lot of business together, right? He's a great dude, good buddy. Hey, TJ, if you're watching this.
What's up, TJ?
But I had sent him the link to the podcast and I basically said, hey, I'd love to get your feedback. Let me know what you think. And he said, Nick, like he called me up immediately after he watched it and he was like, Nick, I don't think you realize what you're doing. And I was like, uh-oh, like, what did I do?
You just messed up.
Yeah, I was like, I messed up. And he goes, you are bringing humanity and dignity back to industries that have historically had none. And I said, what do you mean? And he was like, man, sales, marketing, business.
Say that again.
You are bringing humanity and dignity back to industries that have historically had none. Most people, when they think of sales, they think of a den of snakes, man. They think, they really do.
Yeah, it's like going to a car lot.
Yeah, man. And that's
nobody wants to go to a car lot.
No one wants to do it.
Everybody wants to go in the middle of the night.
Yeah, exactly. I just want to
there.
go kick the tires while nobody can harass me.
Yeah.
It's like, and it's one of those things where it's part of what I talk about all the time. And I do sales trainings, marketing training, all that kind of stuff. And I do this with all my clients. And it's one of those things where the majority of people would say they don't like sales. And the way that I deal with it is in a way that says, look, you don't have to take advantage of people in order to sell.
Right.
You don't. You really, really don't. You've exemplified that at Bailey. You know what I mean? You distinctly have refused to take advantage of people. I remember you telling such a great story one time, because a lot of people will say, how can I be a man of integrity and still charge these massive profit margins and whatever? And I love the story you told me one time where you tried to tell a woman, hey, I'm not going to be the cheapest option. It was basically you trying to say, I don't want to do this job. It was not the kind of job you really wanted to take. You were like, in order for me to make a buck on this, I would have to way overcharge you, and I don't want to have to do that to you. And what did she say to you? Basically, I don't care. I want you.
Yeah, I gave her some options to go to some other people that's their business model, was doing remodels, like small remodels. We do remodel work, obviously, but we're not suited for your one-off bathroom.
Yeah.
Unless it's like a real tricked out, real big high end, like changing a bunch of walls and doing stuff. But if it's just your normal run of the mill, changing out fixtures and stuff, we just can't do it. We can't make money at it.
Yeah.
And I referred her to some other people. She came back and was like, there's just something about you that I just want to work with you. And I'm like, all right, I just, if I can find margin somewhere and do it cheaper, I definitely give you the money back. But, I'm going to charge you more.
It's
my price is my price.
Yeah, it's just not something that people say. And it's like, even in that moment where you go, man, I tried to push her out and say like, no, you can get it done for less somewhere else and they'll do a good job. And she came back and was just, no, I trust you. I want to work with you. People do business with those that they know and they like and they trust, and it's like, I don't mean to throw out a bunch of cliches, but it's like, it's so cool to see it in real time. You know what I mean? That's my thing, is I believe in treating.
I don't know what you mean, but
what do you mean?
Well, I mean, that's just me being me. You know what I mean? Like, that's really just me being myself. So like, you say that and I don't understand it.
Okay, I'll tell you a fun story. So my first sales job, I was working at Enterprise Rent-A-Car. And it's basically a management training sales program, right? So everybody, you don't get hired as a salesperson or a, whatever. You get hired as a management trainee, right? So it's a whole process for training and prepare. Anyway, that's irrelevant. So the first few months I'm struggling and I'm having a tough time. I've never been in sales before. And my branch manager walks out with me while I'm, pitching somebody and trying to upsell them on something. And then we get the customer in the car and they go. And I said to him, so what do you think? And he goes, I don't think you're going to be able to sell. And I was like, why? And he goes, because you're not willing to bend on your moral code.
Huh.
I was like, did you really? Like, you seriously believe that? And he was like, yeah, man, you got to be able to fudge it a little. You got to be able to bend a little and kind of bend the truth and kind of whatever. And I'm like, I don't really think that's true. And he was like, well, I've been doing this a long time. He tried to pull that card, and I was just like, all right, we'll see. Well, within 3 months, I was the top seller in the region, in the tri-state area, out of 1,200 employees. And he, of course, was like, that's my boy. And I'm like, no, don't try to take credit for what I did. You know what I mean? Because I wanted to show him, you don't have to compromise. It's like, I say it all the time, like, that same buddy of mine, TJ, he introduced me at his wedding and said, hey, this is my buddy Nick. We used to work together. He could sell ice to an Eskimo. And I'm like, as soon as he said it, I felt gross about it. I was like, I know he meant it as a compliment, but I was like, I don't want to sell, Eskimos don't need ice. I don't want to sell ice to an Eskimo. I want to sell fire. You know what I mean? But if I don't offer fire, I'm going to refer them to someone who sells fire. You know what I mean? It's like, I believe that if that's the community that I build around myself of people that I go, hey, he sells fire, go connect. Yeah. Thumbs up.
Go get your fire.
Yeah, go get your fire. You're an Eskimo. Now the Eskimo trusts me. If they ever need anything from me, they're not going anywhere else. And now the guy who sells the fire is actively looking for people who need ice because I just put money in his pocket.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Oh,
it's a totally different way of living, and most people don't see that. They just see the used car salesman and they go, I don't want to be that. And it's like, well, that's not sales. That's a self-centered person. That's a person who's just trying to see other people as a dollar sign.
Yeah, like I've never really looked at selling as selling. Like I've just always looked at it as you have a need and I have a solution for that need.
Really that simple.
And, back whenever it was just me by myself, I could do anything. Mm-hmm. So there wasn't no guardrails or anything. It was like, you want that done? Sure, I can get it done.
Right.
And I can do it. Now it's, there are parameters and things that I've got to follow, but which is why you're here.
Yeah.
But
now you have employees and overhead and all these different things. When it was just you with a tool belt on, you can go do anything and make up your margin because you're literally just what's your overhead?
Yeah,
the materials and payments on your truck. You know.
One thing that would have been really cool whenever you won top sale and that guy was there, would have been like, see what Jesus does, man.
Oh, he did. I barked up that tree quite a bit. That was a fun one.
So I want to ask another question. Here in our community, and you're around a lot of businesses. I mean, you just started a workshop, which is really cool.
Yeah.
How many businesses are you working with on that?
So that one had 18 pre-registered. We're just filling it up now. We have 12 spots in 2 sessions, so it's going to be a total of 24. And we're not going to do it virtual. We're going to start in person, just live, so that we can get that off the ground.
Yeah, that's really cool, man. So you are interacting with so many different businesses, so many different business owners and leaders in those businesses. And I mean, you are when I look at a leader, you have a really good opportunity to impact a lot of different people. And you have a lot of opportunity to, spread the kingdom. So I wanted to ask you, what are some of the biggest challenges that you see in small businesses right now, just across the board? Like if you were to kind of coin or pinpoint, like, if I was to look at every single business and kind of just give them one blanket.
Oof. That's a tall order.
And maybe a few,
it's worth a shot. I'll try to narrow it in. In terms of small businesses, I want to try and relate it back to what we're talking about, but at the same time, like my mind just goes directly to a place of the founder's curse. Have you ever heard of the founder's curse?
I think you've said it to me before, but it's gone in one ear and out the other. Sorry.
I get used to that.
There's a lot of stuff.
There's a lot of stuff going in.
Or nothing. And it just kind of trends. Just goes
so this guy, Ryan Dice, wrote this book, Get Scalable. And the founder's curse says, the more valuable you are to your company, the less valuable your company is. And that meaning that if you're the bottleneck, if you're the one who has to make all the decisions, if you're the one that everyone has to consult with before they can move forward on a project, if you're the one who has to do the work, right, then that decreases the value of the company, especially in the open market, because you can't actually go and sell a company that's dependent on you, because then as soon as you leave, the business is gone.
Yeah.
Right? So the more valuable you are, the less valuable your company is. And what I find is probably the biggest issue in that is that most small business owners have a really difficult time letting go, have a really difficult time saying, I'm going to let this person do this part, right? Because what do they say? A really good manager makes himself irrelevant as quickly as possible, right? And that's kind of the goal. But you want your people to be able to do things without you, right? Even when you're not there, you want things to operate. But most small business owners, like yourself, really good example, you started out doing the work yourself, and that was it. It was all on your back. It was on you. You could make decisions. You could roll. You could make design choices real quick. Bang, bang, bang. Then it gets to a point where you're going to grow your company. All of a sudden, you have to trust somebody else with invoicing. You have to trust somebody else with project management. You have to trust somebody else with, they're going to do the finishes. They're going to figure out those things. And maybe, and we've talked about this many times, maybe they're not going to do it exactly the way you would do it, right?
Which is okay.
Right, which is okay, totally. And you've grown significantly in this area since when we first started working together. Because at first, I remember having to talk you off the ledge a couple of times and just be like, you got to let them do it. You got to let them make that mistake.
Well, that's because I'm doing a lot of it myself.
Yeah. I think that's probably what I think is the biggest issue that I see with most small business owners is that it's all on them. And if you try to tell them that there's a different way to do it, a lot of times they feel like what you're saying is you're a bad business owner. They feel like you're threatening or challenging them and saying that they did it wrong, which is not so. And that's not at all what I would ever want to communicate to a small business owner, man. You do what you got to do to get your business to survive.
Yeah.
But at the same time, if the goal is to have some more of your time back, that's probably the biggest issue, is willingness to be very specific about what you're looking for in your people and then let your people go do what you've asked them to do.
Yeah, I would assume, and I may be wrong, that most of the people that you're dealing with are owner-operators.
Yep.
They may have less than 10 employees. Probably the majority of them are only a few employees. And they're doing most of the work themselves. So, I mean, before I started growing and, I was doing what I'm doing right now, minus the project management, because Steven's doing the project management. But I was, selling project management, site supervising, accounts payable, accounts receivable, all of it.
And secretary. Yeah.
Yeah. The only thing I wasn't doing is I had, a good, set of guys around me that were really good carpenters and workers that did good quality work.
Yeah.
So I could trust them to do those things. But I think what my biggest downfall for me is one, I didn't have any, I had some structure, but not really, nothing like I do now. But people would always tell me all the time that you need to be working on your business and not in your business. I think that's great advice, but I think it's also extremely dangerous.
I think if you take it to the extreme of that sentence, then yes, that's dangerous. I don't think you should only work on your business and not work in your business. I think most people are too busy working in it to work on it. I think we could agree on that. Most people spend all of their time working in the business and none of their time working on it. But I think you need to prioritize at least a few hours a week, at least some time every week to working on it. That while you're working in it, right? You can't drop working in it in order to work on it. That's not going to work. It's going to break.
So for somebody that maybe has never been in the position that me and you are in or have gone through.
Sure.
And doesn't understand the differences. How would you describe the difference between working in and working on?
I would say in is the day-to-day. Working in your business is, you're the owner-operator and you're the one who is doing the things to move the needle, to close the deals, to provide the service, to take care of the little things that need to happen in order to get paid, in order to advertise your company, all of those little things, right? And you maybe, you could have 50 employees and you could still spend all your time working in the business, right? And you could be doing the things that you do, right? So right now you are making sure that everything's going right on job site. So you are, not only handling what you're handling as the owner of the company, you're also, covering site supervision and a lot of those things. So you are constantly working in the business. But what you're also intentionally doing is you're taking at least some time every week, right? Because I force you, right? To go, okay, why are we doing it that way? What is that doing for us? Is that getting us the desired outcome? Right? These are the objectives of our company, right? Which we took the time to design, right? Now that we know those things, we have a big decision to make. Before we do, is that decision going to get us closer to our economic objectives or further, right? So taking that time to work on the business, right? And structure out, how do you do stuff? What are your operating procedures, right? What does operations look like? What does billing look like? What does fulfillment look like? All those kind of things. To actually analyze them and choose to improve them is to work on the business. To work in it is to fulfill, is to do the job so that you can get paid. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I mean, it makes sense to me. I mean, I definitely know the differences between the two.
Yeah.
And I think you explained it pretty clear. It was so tough to trust somebody, but so many people told me, you just got it, man. You got to, So I thought I was doing right, and thought I was hiring, everybody's resume was good and they were, good people, and, they just let me down. The one thing that, another thing that I say that all the time, the one thing. So another thing that has always helped, that is starting to help me now, not outside of what you do, is I learned from a guy to hire slow and fire fast. And man, that's been, that you take that back to your faith, like that's just being a good steward of what God blessed you with.
Sure.
If you've got a person, it could be a really good, nice person that has a great resume that, talks well to everybody and, checks all the boxes, but just doesn't perform.
Yeah.
If you keep that person on, you're not being a good steward of what God blessed you with.
Agreed.
You're allowing somebody to step on what He is blessing you with. That was tough, and it still is tough. We've had these conversations. It's hard to sit down with somebody, and especially for me, because I have a heart of gold that I want to give to everybody. You've even said it to me, quit giving out money. Like, you don't have no money, quit giving. It's like, yes, sir. Okay.
I didn't say that last part quite as aggressively, but I get what you're saying.
You didn't have to say it. I know where I stand.
I understood the lens and the way it came through.
Yeah,
I got you. Yeah.
I know where I stand. I know that I ain't got much money. It's okay. I don't have much money, everybody. Man, growing a business is hard. And it without having somebody that sees all these things every day, if I would have known you a year or 2 years ago, buddy, the differences in where I would be right now in the business is night and day. Because I was at a really good spot and we were, growing and making decisions, and I felt like I was working in the business, but I was working on the business.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you a question. You hadn't hit the wall. You hadn't gotten to a low yet, a year or two, right? So would you have listened, or would you have thought you got it?
No, I would have listened. I definitely would have listened, because I listened to other people. I don't think I was given bad advice. I just don't think I was given enough advice. Or maybe I just wasn't listening enough or asking enough. Like, that could have been my problem too.
Yes.
I look back and try to analyze, like, how did we get here? I love the saying, what got you here won't get you there.
Oh, yeah. If nothing changes, nothing changes.
Right.
I love that one.
And we didn't change. Like, we did, but we didn't. We were still handling things loosely. We didn't have structure. And it's okay to do that when you're doing a little bit here and there and you don't have a lot of people and you still got your hand on everything. But the minute you take your hand off of some stuff and you give it to somebody else, like, if you don't have those things in place, buddy, what's going to happen is what happened to me.
Yeah, it makes sense why people would be, like I was talking about before, it makes sense why owners would be nervous to let go. Because they go, every time I do that, things break. Every time I do that, things go really sideways, all that kind of stuff. And it's like, I get it.
Yeah.
I get it.
That's why I go back to it, because it's like it's the easy thing to do. We're, thanks to you and to the team stepping up. I mean, we're definitely getting out of it. And it's still a long road to hoe to get out of it. But
no doubt.
I just hearing the working in and working on and all of that stuff. It's somebody that has not ever gotten to these spots. Hearing heed these warnings. Seek advice.
That's the hope, sure. Yeah, heed the warning. I feel like a lot of what you and I were talking about, I think it was yesterday we were talking about this, is the idea of why do bad things happen, right? Or like, why do I have to go through this? Or I just wish it wasn't like this or something like that. And it's like, it goes back to when I asked you that question, if you hadn't hit the wall or if you hadn't hit the low, would you really have listened? And it's like, that remains, it's hindsight's 20/20. Of course you could say, yeah, I would have listened, but we don't know because I didn't know you a year and a half ago. But the
50-50.
But the reason that I think it's important to mention is because on our faith journey, everybody wants to go, I put my faith in God and I thought life was going to get easier. You know what I mean? And I thought,
yes.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
I really thought, oh man, well, this fixes everything. Well, it does from an ultimate standpoint, from a macro standpoint. It solves the salvation question, right? It solves where we're going to spend eternity, right? Great. That's awesome. That's the hope that we have in Christ. But it doesn't fix necessarily the micro, right? And a lot of what's happening on the day-to-day basis, you still got to walk it out. You know what I mean? So it's like, why do difficult things happen? Why do we have to go through this? Well, you just said, hopefully someone will watch this podcast and they'll heed the warning and they'll realize, no, you don't need to go down the rabbit hole of all of the crazy things that have happened and the crazy problems you've run into. And it would just turn into a big negative tirade if we did that.
I mean, I will if somebody wants to.
But
let's go have coffee.
Yeah, exactly. Private conversation. But I think it's so important that we realize God has carried us through for a reason. He's carried us through these things because that's how people will connect and understand God's goodness. They're not going to understand it if you, on your high horse, making $1 million a day with no problems and walking around sinless and just going, I belong to Jesus and I drive a beautiful car. And I float on a cloud. And they're going to go, really? I hate you because my life doesn't look like that. So I don't relate to you. I don't understand you. I think you're judging me. I think you know what I mean? And that's how most people look at Christians, is they think, oh, Christians think they're higher than. The exact opposite. Christians understand that we are sinners. We understand that without a savior, we're doomed. We're done, dude.
Yeah.
Like that's how we look at our faith. And the temptation is to flip it on its head so that people can get confused and they can remain their own God.
Yeah.
Because that's what they want to be. They don't want to submit to God. They want to remain God in their own life. And I was there too. I'm not judging it. But yeah, I feel
it's like the other day when we were talking, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
You're fine.
When we were talking and I compared Finding Christ to the Matrix, I just want to go back and
blue
shake
pill
the blue
or red pill. Sometimes I get it. Yeah.
Because Finding Christ has been the best. Finding Him and Him being in my life, it's just changed who I am. Mm-hmm. And you're right. People think that the minute you find Christ, your life's all better. It is. It is way better. But you understand how wretched you are now. You really know that you are just a dirty, rotten person. You're great, and you were worthy of our Creator to come to this earth and show us how to live and then die for us. You are very special, but you also can never measure up without Him. Right,
exactly. Perfectly said. You can never measure up without Him.
Yeah.
On our own, man, I'm just a selfish, prideful, indulgent person who just wants to do what feels good.
Yeah.
Every second of every day. That is where I lived my entire life. I needed to feed my flesh because I wasn't fed spiritually, right? And what I was getting fed spiritually, I saw a dichotomy. I saw people who said, I believe these things, and then they didn't behave that way in private, right? Because you don't tell who a person is by the way they behave in public. Who a person is displayed by the way they behave in private with the people closest to them.
Yeah.
That's who the person really is. You know what I mean? And everybody goes, oh, that was just a crazy circumstance and that was not me. No. If you could treat someone really close to you in that way, that's what comes out. You squeeze an orange juice comes out. You know what I mean? So it's one of those things where I grew up around people who would say in public all these wonderful values and wonderful things, and then in private, the way they would destroy each other verbally, emotionally, the way that all kinds of crazy stuff was happening to, I won't go down the rabbit hole, but again, take me to coffee, But it's one of those things where then as a kid, you start to go, well, that's now what I think God is. I think that God is a hypocrite. I think that God says behave this way, but really that's not who he is.
Yeah.
Because that was the example that you saw in your life.
Yeah.
And everybody wants to go, but God is good. But when you've been through that and you start to think, no, I've seen what a father is. I've seen what a mother is. I've seen what those things are. And the God you're describing, that's not really him. Because if it really was, he would have fixed it. He wouldn't have let me go through that. He wouldn't have let that happen.
Yeah.
And it's how we take what is intended to shape us and grow us, and we make it a negative, and we live in a victim mentality, and we want to play this game where we go, because I went through this, now I have the right to be a jerk and be impatient and not submit my life to Christ. And that's not the goal.
Yeah, I mean, this may ruffle some feathers, but I think a lot of that has to do with religion.
Yeah.
And people, even myself included, mixed up Christianity and religion. Christianity is not a religion. It's a relationship.
Right.
It's and the more you dig into scriptures, the more you read into it, the truths of that are written throughout all of it, It's just so obvious that you don't have to do the chants, do the mantras to find Christ.
What do you mean when you pray, you don't talk like this and then fall off at the end?
No, I do not. But I think a lot of like what you just said, that somebody, whenever they lived, they were this way, because I'm not that guy. What you see right here, what you see on this video, what you see me, on my job, that's the same person I am at home. Mm-hmm. I'm actually probably a little calmer at home, I mean, maybe a little less reserved at home, because I don't want my kids. I mean, I don't care if my kids see, I tell my kids everything, but I want them to. I would much rather them know that I don't have to deal with issues.
What do you mean?
I'm having a hard time describing this, but like, I want them to know the real me. I want them to know really who I am, but I don't want them to know that I've got like addiction problems and those things. Like, I would much rather not have those things. I mean, I'm more comfortable telling the world that I'm an alcoholic and that I have issues with those things, and then I would sit down and have that conversation with my son. Like, it's hard, like that's hard, and they look up to me, and to know that, there's days that, I walk past a door at the convenience store and it's got beer in it, and I am like, it's like grabbing me by my arm and wants me to, like that. It's hard to say those things, but I can say it to you. I can say it to other people. I can say it publicly, but to my children, it's tough. To my wife, it's tough, because I want to be perfect. I'm the man. I lead the house, I don't have no issues,
Do you think that that's the right way to handle it?
Heck no, not at all.
What would be the right way to handle it and why?
I mean, the right way to handle it would be to just say the truth.
Which is?
That I am an addict and I have issues, and that the only way that I've overcome it is Christ.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
And I struggle with it every day. But the only way that I overcome it every day is by surrendering, by hitting my knees and praying and asking for forgiveness every day, because I'm a wretched man. And the only way that I am a good man is by Christ. That if I wanted to be me, nobody would want to be around me. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I totally understand.
And it wasn't until I found Christ, until I really found truth and meaning in life. You know, not that my kids and my wife didn't fulfill me, but I just wasn't fulfilled. You know what I mean? I was always looking for something, and I found him. You know, I found him.
And I like to talk about addiction as addiction is not a problem. Addiction is a solution. It's a very, very interesting dichotomy.
That's interesting to say.
Addiction's not a problem. Addiction is a solution. The question is, what's the problem? Why do we go to addictions, to self-destructive behaviors in order to numb ourselves? There's a reason. There's something we're running from. There's something we don't want to feel. There's something we don't want to be honest about. There's something that we're trying not to say. There's something that we're actively trying not to let come out or let happen. There's a million different possibilities, right? I can't pretend to say that addiction is caused by one thing, but at the same time, it is, for me, it came down to, for an example, just over 2 years ago, I finally put down cigarettes after I smoked for like 15 years. And the day that I was able, because I put them down, and I remember over and over and over again, I would crumple up the last 4 cigarettes and be like, I'm done with these, and throw it, and be like, and I'd
go to the trash can.
And go to the, right, yeah, dude. I've done it. Seriously, yeah. I have done it.
I did it dipping. Whenever I used to chew, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off again,
no.
But I would, when I was quitting dipping, I would, I don't know why I do this stuff. And I'd throw it in the trash can, a whole can. Just buy a brand new can, throw it in there.
Yeah.
45 minutes later, I'm sitting on the couch like, I'll go get it.
Yeah.
Nobody's going to see.
Nobody's going to know. No one's going to see.
It's crazy.
And those little compromises over time is what kills our self-worth and what teaches us and programs us and convinces us that that's who we are. And it's not true. And the beauty of, of the concept of addiction is that the concept of getting through addiction requires such psychotic amounts of vulnerability and of work and of willingness to allow someone to see you and to be honest. And that, to me, creates some of the strongest people on this planet. You know what I mean? But going back to the cigarettes thing, the number of times I threw away the cigarettes and said, I'm never doing this again. Then I started having kids, and my wife was like, look, I don't really mind it, but I really don't want I don't want you smoking around the kids, and I don't want them to smell it on you. I don't want you to, any secondhand smell, all that kind of stuff. My first daughter was born. I was going through a crazy time in my life. I was smoking like a chimney. And in New York, that sucks, because when you're outside in January smoking like that, you know what I mean? It's the dumbest thing ever. So
that's where addiction really starts shining.
Down here in Florida, it's no big deal. Cold day is 35. But but anyway, the day that I was able to quit cigarettes was the day that I finally admitted out loud that I was angry. It was the day that I admitted out loud that I was angry at someone that I had been holding a grudge against. Mm. Literally the second I admitted that out loud, it was like the desire for cigarettes just left. And I didn't want it anymore. And I was sitting here going, oh, so that's what that was tied to. It was a moment inside me that was going, I'm angry about something, but I don't want to face the fact that I'm angry about it.
Yeah.
Which, number one, makes me feel like a piece of garbage and makes me feel like you're such a wimp. Why can't you face this? But also, that pain and the fact that I won't face it is making me want to hurt myself. So I'm smoking. The moment I admitted it, and I just went, no, I am, and I'm allowed to be angry at this person. That's okay.
Yeah.
Gone. The desire left. I haven't needed cigarettes since. It's been almost 2 years.
That's awesome.
Now, when it came to other addictions in my life and all that kind of stuff, things that we, many of us, young boys got exposed to when we were kids, and someone showed us a laptop and we went, I like that,
Yeah.
We don't need to get graphic here, but the concept of I've been addicted to that since I was 13 years old.
Wow.
That's more than 24 years worth of addiction to that. And you go, man, I've tried to break that addiction so many times. Then I finally got into a process of understanding who I am and who God says I am. And once I finally understood God loves me genuinely, exactly as I am, and I was able to face that, there's nothing that I can do that can separate me from his love. That's a thing that a lot of us say. But when you actually understand that, freedom comes, man.
Yeah.
Because you realize now I can operate from that place. Now I want to treat my body, I want to treat my mind like a temple of the Holy Spirit, because that's what it is. This is where God lives. You know what I mean? To look at you and sit across the table from you, and of course it's going to be funny to say on a podcast, but to be 42 days sober of that addiction, I've never, since I'm 13 years old, I've never gone more than 7 days, ever. I know that's terrible to say. What a crazy thing to say. But until we can admit and face what we're really up against, we can't solve it. And we can't, until you can name it and you can genuinely say, you know, hey, God, I want you to take this from me. Have you ever said that? Like, God, I want you to take this from me. Please take this away. Take away the temptation. Take away the pain, all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
God's not in the business of taking. He's in the business of receiving. What does that mean? He's not going to take it away from you. He wants you to give it to him. He's waiting for you to surrender and give it to him.
Yeah.
And we're sitting here our whole lives going, if you would just take this away, everything would be fine. And he's going, the real work will be done in the process of you learning how to give it to me.
That's so good. I hope that helps anybody.
I hope that helps somebody. I mean,
It helps me.
Well then, my work here is done.
Not yet, man. Not yet.
No, I thank you for showing faith in me as a professional, as a business coach, you know, and when we first started working together, I think this is a valuable enough story for us to share, and I hope it's encouraging to somebody. Is you remember when we first started working together, and I was trying to help you guys redesign a lot of your, you know, flight plan, so to speak, you know, what it is that's going to keep your company up and running and getting to where it wants to go. And in the process of that, I think after a couple of months of doing that, we all just kind of, you were in the middle of a million things, and there were so many different things going on. And I closed the book, and I just looked at you and Samantha. You remember this? I basically said, I think the smartest thing y'all can do is fire me.
Yeah,
remember that?
I remember that.
I think the smartest thing that you can do is take what you were going to pay me next month and go take that and go do X, Y, Z with it, because you need to go get these few things in order. You got some stuff, you got some holes in the, you know, and basically the thing that I said to you guys that I have now since repeated so many times, I think it's valuable, you know, not just to business owners, but also to us in our faith is you don't renovate a house that's on fire. You put the fire out.
Right.
Everybody's running around with a house on fire. Everybody's running around and they got parts of their life that they're ignoring. They're pretending they're not on fire. They're pretending they're not hurting. They're pretending they don't have pain. They're pretending they're not carrying X, Y, Z. And they're going, if I could just succeed at my job, then all that'll be fine and I won't feel the flames. You don't.
No, it's not true.
It's not true at all. You can't or shouldn't renovate a house that's on fire. You don't pick countertops in the kitchen while the living room's on fire. You put the fire out. You need to put the fire out. So that was what I said to you guys. You need to put the fire out, and then we could pick this up later. We could do whatever you want to do. That's fine. And then you called me. It wasn't but a couple of weeks later, and things had flipped around, and some of the fires had gone out, and you had asked me, hey, I know you work as a fractional COO, and I need some help running this business. You know, you said to me probably the biggest compliment that anybody's ever given me. You said, Nick, I'm a craftsman with my hands. You are a craftsman with words and with people, and I need help on that front.
Yeah, and you have, man. I mean, you literally just answered my next question, because I was going to ask you, you know, when a company's under pressure financially or operationally, what, you know, how do you survive? You know, and you put the fire out.
You put the fire out, and everybody goes, well, I can't. I'm too busy, you know, trying to keep the bills paid and keep money coming in by renovating the kitchen. Okay, that's working in the business, but you got to spend some time working on it. You got to spend some time putting the fire out. You know what I mean? You have to. Because otherwise, you're going to finish the kitchen, and then the fire's going to hit the kitchen. What the heck was the point?
Yeah, I mean, with us, I look at all the things that, you know, we're still struggling, obviously, but, you know, I just feel so much at peace with it these days. You know, like God has opened up so many doors.
No doubt.
And do I have anxiety? Yeah, but I lean into those anxieties. You know, what am I anxious about? You know, I think I was talking to you about this. That I was listening to another podcast over the weekend, and they were talking about anxieties. And, you know, we usually want to medicate or turn away from the anxieties. Think happy thoughts. Go to your happy place. You know, like Happy Gilmore, whenever Happy Gilmore was, you know, going to putt, and he would go to happy place.
Yeah.
You know, and the women with beer and all that stuff, you know. It's like, that's not life, you know. If you're anxious about something, find out what you're anxious about, you know. And if it's something that you can handle it, you know. But if it's something that you can't handle, give it to God. You know, like I've always lived by the serenity prayer. Like even when I wasn't really a Christian, you know, like I grew up in church, and you know, I was around it, you know, Christianity my whole life, but I just definitely went way to the wayside. And but when I was a kid, I was 16 or 17. I forget where I got it from, but it was a calendar that someone gave me, a wallet-sized calendar. Nobody carries wallets anymore these days. At least I don't. I have a minimalistic type little thing, but you know, like a billfold, an actual billfold. But they gave me it was a credit card size calendar, and on one side it had all the months of the year on it and all the days, and on the other side it was a serenity prayer. And man, there's so much truth to that. You know, God grant me the serenity to accept the things that I cannot change, to change the things that are the courage to change the things that I can, and the wisdom to understand the difference.
Yep.
Like, there's so much simplistic to that. Like that, just thinking about that for a second, when you break that down, it's like, accept the things that I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can. That's your anxieties. You know, the courage to look at your anxiety, grab it, and take care of it. You know, if you're anxious about money, you know, maybe you need to go to work. You know, if you're anxious because, you know, your wife may be mad at you, well, what did you do? You know, maybe you did something you shouldn't do.
Self-reflection is a hell of a drug, and people really, really have a difficult time with that one. People would rather swallow a roll of quarters, you know, than self-reflect and have to ask the question of, you know, what did I do wrong? Because most people are just living in such a place of, you know, and I was too, of such self-justification. You know, what did I do? You know, well, I meant well, so therefore you should just forgive me, you know, and they don't want to, it's so, I think it's why it is necessary for salvation that we surrender to God and admit that He is God and that we're not. I think it's why it's necessary. It requires humility, and that admission that you are not God and that you need a Savior, that's humility. That's it in a nutshell. And if you can admit that you are broken, if you can admit that you can't do right enough in order to get to heaven, right? If you can admit that you're not God, then when presented with an opportunity, like I love how, I think it's the Psalm, I don't remember if it's a Psalm or proverb that says, if you rebuke a fool, he will hate you. If you rebuke a wise man, he will appreciate it. Right? Like the idea of if I challenge you, right? And this happens all the time. And this is, by the way, the main reason that I came on to work with you guys is because when I challenged you, you were willing to receive. You were willing to hear me. You were willing to at least take and consider what I was saying. I'm not expecting that if anybody's going to work with me, that they're just going to blindly listen to anything that I say. Because I don't know construction as well as you know construction, right? So I'm not going to tell you. But when you challenge a wise person, they go, oh, that's interesting. I didn't think about it like that, you know, and they reflect. When you challenge a fool, they hate you for it, right? It was a big part of the reason. It was, you know, going back to some of the stuff that I went through in my life, and a lot of the reason that we left New York was because most of the main people, the main relationships in my life, when I challenged them, there was no willingness to hear a word. There was no willingness to receive. There was no willingness to discuss. It was just, nope, that's not true. I'm not doing that. That's not happening. You're looking at it wrong. Okay. Well, a person who could repeatedly say that to you will hurt you with a smile on their face.
Yeah.
They will continue to hurt you, and they'll do it thinking, oh, he's fine. It's fine. No, it's not. It led me to spending almost a year of my life with a gun in my mouth. You can't be treated like that over and over and over again and then be like, you should just get over it because they're family, because they're this, because they're that. No.
No, you shouldn't.
No. And everybody goes, well, they didn't know any better. If they knew not to behave that way in public, they knew.
Oh, of course they knew.
You know what I mean?
100% they knew.
And I used to get prepped all the time. You don't talk about what goes on in this house in public. That means you knew. That means you know. It's not okay. The idea that you could say that sentence to a child,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah. And we went deep.
I'm telling you.
We went real deep.
I tried to warn you. You might not want to start digging at these little crazy. What am I thinking about? Like when you go down a rabbit hole.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was like, you're just watching my brain try to connect synapses in real time.
Yeah, I mean, I love conversations like this. So, you know, I mean, you've already said it, but I analyze everything that I do. What did I do wrong? How can I be better? Look, you know, what can I change? You know, like it's like this podcast. You know, I really care about our community, and I care about the people that I'm working alongside, and I want to be a help, not a hindrance. You know, if I can do my part, then I'm going to do my part. But I need, you know, people beside me. You know, iron sharpens iron.
Yeah.
You need that beside you every day, you know, because whenever you get out of line, you got somebody there to be like, you know?
There is safety in a multitude of counselors, right?
Yeah.
You do need to have different perspectives. And I've said it a million times, you can't see the picture from inside the frame, right? It's a big part of the reason that I do what I do is because I can stand outside of Bailey and I can go, here's what I see. And you can go, well, that's not what's happening. I can go,
It is.
look at it from this perspective. Let's think about that for a second. You know what I mean? But there is such a thing as morbid introspection, being so self-reflective that it becomes morbid and it becomes too much, right? And when you get to those points, you know, I call you out and I challenge you and I go, all right, let's easy. You know what I mean? Like sometimes you need to be reminded of that. Hey, it's not as crazy as you're really thinking that it is, you know, because you can go too deep down the rabbit hole and you can get to a point where you're just like, now you're not even doing yourself any good. Now you're just beating yourself up.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah, 100%. Morbid introspection, dude. I had a counselor, and he's one of my best friends to this day. His name's Bill Hoffman, Pastor Bill. And he's been discipling me and working with me probably since I was like 24 years old. And he has said to me all the time, Nick, you border morbid introspection. Like you're so reflective that it becomes way negative. You know, it's like you're looking at yourself in that way. And it's not healthy because some anxiety is okay. A little bit of self-reflection and self-awareness is great, you know, but too much, that's a faith issue.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's an admission that we need more faith. I remember, I think I heard a really cool, he's a business leader I used to know, and he actually played in the NFL. Dave Taylor once said that. You know,
I don't know who Dave Taylor is.
He used to play in the NFL. He used to play for the Colts back when they were out of Baltimore.
Oh,
but he
that's going way back.
Yeah, he was a great guy, and you know, I haven't seen him in a long time, but he said a little bit of that anxiety, a little bit of that self-reflection, it's good, but too much, it's a faith problem.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So, just kind of wrapping this up a little bit, I want to ask you one more question. I think me personally, I think you've kind of answered this, and you've definitely touched on it throughout the whole podcast. But if a young leader's listening right now, what should they be focusing on?
I would say probably the best piece of advice that I could give to a young person who's either wanting to be an entrepreneur, wanting to start their own business, thinking of themselves as wanting to head into leadership of some sort. I would say don't do what you're passionate about. Do what you're good at and get passionate about it. Everybody spends their time chasing passion, chasing, I want to do what I love. Do what you love. You'll never work a day in your life. It's a lie. I was a professional musician for years. I was an actor before that. If you do what you love, you'll be willing to work for free.
I mean, I do what I love every day.
You've also fallen in love with something that you're very good at doing. That's just smart. There's a lot of people who are very good at something that's very marketable that they could probably make a butt ton of money doing, but they go, I'm just more passionate about something else. I have no problem with you having passions, having things that you love to do. That's fine. I love the idea of enjoying music. I enjoy singing, right? I'm a drummer and a singer, right? And I enjoy doing that. So I want to do that in places like church. I want to use my gifts to glorify God. I want to use my gifts to encourage other believers to say, hey, look, you can be free and open and comfortable in the way that you worship God. I want to use my gift for that. But if I didn't have an opportunity, like when we were playing music professionally, we got major label offers from Universal and from Warner Brothers. And we looked at the deals and we realized they were going to keep 95 or 96% of everything and make the 6 of us split 4%. And by the way, the first signing bonus that they give you is not a bonus. That's a loan.
Yeah.
You got to pay that back.
It's an advance.
Isn't it, right? So it was one of those things where we were sitting going, man, you will sell your soul for the sake of being able to do what you love for a living.
Yeah.
And what are most of us really seeking when we go, I want to be famous, I want to be an influencer, I want to be this. It's why I've avoided social media for so long, is because I didn't want to be an influencer. I didn't want the attention anymore. I didn't want to have to put myself in front of people. I don't love doing that. I'm just good at it.
Yeah.
And I'm willing to do and share my gifts with people for the sake of blessing them and helping them grow their business. If I had my druthers, I would play music and sing all the time. I would go do community theater all the time because I love theater and I love musicals and I love all that kind of stuff. I'm that, weirdo, man. You want to see me tap dance? I'll do it on a different podcast.
That ain't weird.
But, yeah. No, I was that funny theater kid in high school. And it's like, I went down that road. I had 3 agents sending me out on auditions for film, commercial, and Broadway, and theater. And it was fun. But man, making a living in it, you got to be willing to eat a lot of crow. You got to be willing to do a whole lot for very little, if not nothing. And they're ready to scrap you in a moment if you question anything that they do.
Yeah, you're just a number.
You're just a number to them. They can get someone else who looks just like you to say the lines.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And everybody wants that spot, So we did it. We made a living doing it, It was great, but we got to a point where, man, every time we made an extra couple of bucks, a speaker would fall off the truck, and we would there went our profit, And we just went, and we went into business ownership, and I just went, how about I figure out what I'm really good at? And I fall in love with it, and I get passionate about it. I don't like sales. That's the funny thing. I hate sales.
Yeah.
I've always hated sales. But if you're good at something, so now what I do is I channel the concept that I never really liked sales, and I go, well, why? Why didn't I like sales? I know I'm good at it, but why didn't I like it? Well, maybe there's other people that don't like it, but man, they just need a shift in mindset. Maybe they just need to learn to look at it a little bit differently. And maybe if they do, they'll be able to get good at it. So I found my niche, and that's kind of where I'm leaning into. You know what I mean?
I guess that really makes a lot of sense, honestly, because I love building things. I don't love the business.
Right.
That is not what I love doing.
That's a good point.
I love people, not all of them, even though we're supposed to. We're supposed to
you
love
can love them. You don't have to like
them.
You don't have to like everybody, but you
you
love them anyways. It's different. Yeah.
That's really good.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, man, because now that I'm sitting here thinking about it and you put it in that context, I don't love what I do. I got good at it, and I fell in love with it,
You found what works, and you learn to get passionate about that.
Yeah.
There's nothing. It's like a really wise person once said, I don't think you should take a job because you love it. I think you should take a job because it makes you the most amount of money in the least amount of time so that you can focus your energy on what's really important to you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Me and my son had this conversation this morning. It's really good. It's amazing how God works and life just comes full circle, man. Well, brother, I really, really love talking to you. I do. I really appreciate you taking the time to do this. I'm super grateful for you. I'm thankful that you're in my life. We've become really good friends, and not only are you helping me, in my business, but you're helping me here, and I know that we'll be friends forever. So thank you.
Can't get rid of me now. Now you're stuck with me.
Stuck like glue. So
I appreciate you. Thanks for saying that.
Yeah,
and I
for
feel
sure.
exactly the same. I really do.
Thank you, buddy.
Yeah, man.
So tell the people where they can find you. I mean, if you're somebody that, struggling like I was, that needs help in their business, give them a shout
So
out.
you can find me at newlightconsultants.com or check out on social, search for New Light Consultants. You'll find me. I'm on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube. I'm all over the place. But newlightconsultants.com. And feel free to say hi. Yeah, I'd love that.
Nick Melillo.
Proud of you.
Melillo.
Look at you, man.
Got that
Growth.
right. Yeah, it's nice, isn't it? Well, thanks, man.
I love it. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course, buddy. Of course. We're going to continue this, and maybe we'll have round 2 one day.
Yeah, man. Tempt me with a good time.
Yeah, for sure. So, guys, we're thanks that you're watching. Hopefully, you got some good content out of this. And Nick's a really bright man with a lot of good words. Definitely has changed me and helped me a lot. So, thank you for watching. We're definitely going to do this again. So, keep a lookout, and we'll see you next time. Thanks.